This is the Penderyn Copperopolis film. My name's Ray Collier from the Friends of Havard-Morver Copperworks, and over the next few minutes I'll be talking to you about Swansea's long association with the copper trade, something around the Havard-Morver works itself, and then finally how those old industrial buildings which were closed down in 1980 have been repurposed to form part of Penderyn's new distillery in Swansea. For much of the 19th century, Swansea was at the very heart of a worldwide trade in copper, and in some respects it gained its name Copperopolis because of its importance. This picture is from 1805, and you can see it's a largely rural setting with a cattle drover, a farmhouse, but in the middle of the picture is tall chimneys of brick and wisps of smoke. This was one of the early copper works which were actually built in the Swansea Valley. But by that time, industry had been going for some 90 years. The first works was built at Llangyfelach in 1717. This area in the middle of the picture, the Havard and the Morver works. This is a map from 1879, and you can see that by the 1870s, these works are very substantial. The main thing about the Swansea copper trade is that there is no copper in Swansea. It all had to be imported, originally from Cornwall and then later on from across the world. And if you look at the map itself, you will see the central blue line is the River Tawe. The Havard Works was established in about 1810 by John Vivian.
After much time scouting the area around Swansea, I selected a prime location, which was situated between the Swansea Canal and the River Tawe. It was perfect for waterway transportation, as coal could be brought down the valley via the canal, and copper ore along the river from the nearby port at Swansea.
Although the works was largely managed by his son John Henry, and here they built their copper works in 1909, 1910. And John Henry is also a very successful businessman because he made sure that they always had a good supply of coal by getting involved into the mining industry and didn't have any problems getting their copper ore imported by being involved also in the shipping industry. But his son on the far side is the man who really takes the copper works to the next step. And Henry Hussey Vivian is such a successful businessman that by 1893 he becomes Lord Swansea. And the business continues much in the same vein until about 1924. Because of the gradual rundown in the importance of copper in terms of Swansea and its expansion on a worldwide scale, it becomes much cheaper to actually produce your copper in the Americas, in Australia and around the world. At that stage, the Havard Works and the Morver Works start to merge and they become British copper manufacturers. It started in 1828, but they started the plant here just as a rolling mill. But by 1835, the success of the business is such that they are also smelting copper here. The two works merge, they become British copper manufacturers. 4 years later, they become part of Imperial Chemical Industries, or ICI, right until about 1957, when ICI get into league with Yorkshire Metals. And the works carries on through the 50s and the 60s. It's a process of gradual decline. And by 1980, both of these works actually closed completely. This is a picture that you can see from 1928. The first one is called the Powerhouse, which is where I'm standing now. And the second one is this is the rolling mill, which was initially used just by Swansea Museum Service. This is the Powerhouse. The photo's taken round about the 1960s. The Powerhouse was actually built round about 1890, and it was used largely to generate electrical energy for the rest of the site. It has a very nice frontage facade and clock tower, but when the two works merged in 1924, it became surplus to requirement. And its repurposing was that it became a works canteen. And you can see the wooden trestle tables and chairs that are below there for people to have their lunch. The far end is a till and a serving area. Up here is a nice stage where you'd be making your announcements for the day. But we can tell the age of the photo by this mixture of a little electric lighting going on, but largely still they're using gas mantles here. An important architectural feature of the building are these cast iron columns, which are actually holding up the roof. They're the roof supports. But when the works closed in 1980, there were attempts made to make this a community centre, but it suffered from a number of fires. The clock tower just about remaining, but the roof is completely gone. This is a picture that I took in 2020. It had suffered years of weathering, neglect, vandalism, graffiti. But the interesting thing is that the cast iron roof supports are still standing with just surface rust. Penderyn Whisky, along with the City and County of Swansea and the Heritage Lottery Fund, pursue a program to actually restore and repurpose this building. These are the original cast iron roof supports which have been there since the building was produced, probably in the late 1800s, when it was part of the South Powerhouse. And they're still here, still doing the job that they were designed for, still holding up the roof. One of the original furnaces, which was actually on the Morva Copperworks site, was used for the smelting of copper. The furnace is largely brick built and probably fired from the bottom, because the roasting process meant that the ore was actually above the fuel and heated it up that way. The clock tower is being reinstated by this crane here. This is the side of the building which has been completely restored with a new Welsh slate roof, and this is Penderyn's visitor centre at the end. And on the far side you can see the facade of the building as it stands today. Much of the brickwork that you see here is new. This is brick infill. These columns going down were the original roof supports for this building. This is the mill itself, open-sided. That brickwork, as I said, was new. You needed furnaces to make sure that the copper plate, which is down here in blocks, needs to be kept hot to make it malleable for when it goes through the rollers. These are the furnaces here, and at the far end where the large wheel is, that's where the rolling mills are. These are the machines that they would be using. These men would be holding copper plate in tongs and passing it through the rollers to get it down to the thickness that was required. This is the rolling mill, which you saw earlier on in the pictures. Now it's been cleared and it's been used as barrel storage by Penderyn Distillery. If you've been interested to find out more in the Havard Morva works, we'll be running a series of local tours. There are other buildings which we will show you. We can tell you more about the history. Many thanks indeed. Goodbye.